Hello everybody, Bricks for Dom here, and first of all, I'm very sorry for not uploading for a very long time, but I have a good reason for that, and the reason is this. And what is this? Well, this is my mock contest entry for Bricks' 3000 subscriber mock contest, which first of all, a huge congratulations to him. Here's to 4000, and so yeah, for the past 2 weeks, all I have been doing is building this mock, and so now I will explain you the rules of this mock contest. So the maximum size for this mock contest was 32 by 32 studs, which is a regular green base plate, which is what I used for this mock as I wanted to use all of the space, and the minimum size was 16 by 16 studs. And so the main theme for this Lego mock contest was castle, or sort of like, medieval. So for this mock, I built sort of like this very big and sort of like very old medieval house, and I'll show you all of the details and techniques that I've used in this build and mock. But before I do that, I will firstly explain the whole story of a mock. So in this universe, there is a very evil wizard, which is just very powerful and ruthless, and definitely somebody you wouldn't want to cross. Which for the wizard itself, I used the whole minifigure from series 13, the evil wizard. But I did change out his staff, and they also gave him the headgear piece from Lego Disney CMF Series 2 Jafar, which I think just looks amazing, and it makes the wizard look a lot more evil, and the color scheme just fits very well. And then there's another wizard which I made for this mock, and so this wizard wanted to try and track down the evil wizard to try and finally defeat him. But before he did that, he of course needed some help, so he went to different kingdoms to, ask all like the kings and queens if they would spare some fighters, some of the best fighters, to go on this journey to take down the evil wizard, and which is pretty much the whole story of this mock. And then if any of you wondering what is this minifigure that is hiding in the corner, well, this is the Archer Minifigure from CMF Series 16, which I didn't change anything. I also don't know the name of the minifigure, but I think you all know what I am talking about. But I mean, yeah, the rogue archer probably heard some noise, so he came out to check what is happening. But right now he is hiding behind a corner, just in case, which is probably a good idea. But right now I am going to do a 360 of a whole mock so that I could show you all of the sides of a mock, and I'll show you some of my favorite details on the edges of a mock. So yeah, let's start. So I mean, yeah, right now you can see the front of a mock, which on this side they made this very long path using the snot technique, which I think looks very cool, which I didn't add too much detail. I didn't add a lot of plates and whatnot. Mostly because I didn't think I needed to, and also I was running out of pieces, but I still think it turned out great. So we will start by turning the base plate to the left side, which on the side of the path I just added a lot of greenery and just used a lot of techniques for the plant. Here's a very, very simple sapling for a small tree. And also over here, this is supposed to be a molehill. And if I take this plate off, well, as you can see, there's a little mole, and there's also a hole in the side of the molehill, which I think is a very cool detail. Here's a skunk and just some more plants using different techniques. And of course, there's this very cool tree that I made over here, which I will show you the techniques of a tree a little bit later, but for now I will keep spinning the base plate. Which I really like this small plant which I made by using 2 brown skeleton legs and also a flintlock pistol to make the branches of a plant. I think that is a very cool detail. Just spinning the mock around a little bit more, there's this patch of mushrooms which I think turned out amazing. It is most likely one of my favorite parts of this whole mock. I think it looks great, and I mean, yeah. And by turning the mock a little bit more, there's this workbench place, which I think turned out great. At the back of a workbench, there's another mushroom, which for the stem of a mushroom, I used a Lego Harry Potter white wand piece, which I think it looks great. And there are a lot more other details. For example, sticks on the floor, and also sticks in the barrel, or maybe even hay. Which again, I just stuffed a bunch of Lego Harry Potter wand pieces into the barrel, and it makes for a great effect. Of course, here's the chimney for the house. And on the side of a chimney, there's some more greenery. There's also a fishing rod leaning against the wall of a house. There's also just, some more plants, and so like a bag of maybe like corn, or, just a bag of anything really. And they will explain what is happening over here and why this all building is on fire. And over here, there's a little small pig pen, which is very simple. The techniques for the fence is just very simple, but I mean, yeah, it's nothing too crazy or too special. But I mean, yeah, those are all of the details for the edge of a mock, which don't worry, I will show you all of the techniques that I used for certain things, for example, the tree and other things that look pretty interesting. But I mean, yeah, right now I'm going to show you the things that are around the actual house. So for the house in front of it, I made a dirt and sand path, and then it blends into a small cobblestone path, and then it just leads into the longer path. But I mean, yeah, I will also show you how to make this very cool bendable wall, which I really like how it turned out and has a pretty interesting technique. And over here there is a log pile, which is either going to be used as firewood or construction material, or maybe even both. Which unfortunately I don't have any of a 2x2 or 1x1 circular printed log tiles, which would have been a very cool detail, but for this mock I didn't order any pieces, but those are definitely going to be some pieces I will have to get in the future. But I did still try to add some detail around the logs. For example, there's an axe in the middle of them, and just some other, sticks all around them. And over here are some fish that are hung up and are drying out in the sun, which previously they may have been salted so that they could be preserved, which is the reason why I included the fishing rod leaning on the side of one of the house's walls, which of course in this mock itself I didn't add a creek or pond or a river or lake, but you could just imagine that maybe not too far from this house there is maybe a creek or pond or lake, where the owner of a house and maybe his children go to fish sometimes, and that is the reason why there are fish. And over here is a barrel that may have a beverage inside of it, but I really like the technique that I used for the tap of a barrel, which I actually used a black crowbar piece for the tap of a barrel instead of using just the regular black tap that other people may use, which I think is a very cool technique and detail, and it is pretty simple. Alright, so here's some part usage that I'm very proud of, which this is actually the spiky hairpiece that I think a lot of you know and love. But I used this spiky hairpiece as the backside of a hedgehog. So what happened is I was trying to make some characters for the mock, and then I found this spiky hairpiece and I thought that it could work for a hedgehog, and I was right. Which literally all you need is just this spiky hairpiece and a couple of studs. And at least to me, ever since I thought of it as a hedgehog, I just can't unsee it, and for me it looks like a spiky hedgehog that is running into the bushes, which I think is a pretty cool detail. Alright, so right now I will show you some of the cooler details and part usages that I used for some of the cooler details. So for example, for some of these mushrooms I used the Tan Technic small gear for the underside of a mushroom, which I think just works very well. And for example, for this mushroom I used the red bucket piece, which again I think is a very great part usage, and I really like this area. Alright, so right now I am going to show you how I made this tree. So how I got the shape of a tree is I actually used a flex tube, and that is how I got the angle and shape. And instead of using these 2x2 rounded brown circular bricks, I used barrels so that I could actually get more texture for the tree and just some more great part usage, which of course may not be very realistic, but I think it just looks more interesting to look at. And also just the actual leaves for the tree are pretty simple, there's nothing too special. Alright, and so this bendable wall technique is probably one of the more trickier techniques to build. So you do need a couple Lego minifigure hands, and you need a lot of 1x2 tiles, and you stick these minifigure hands into the tiles and then you just connect them together, which is a very interesting technique and it is pretty fiddly to do, but I think the end result looks great. And I should also mention that I did get this technique from Dan the Fan, so a huge shout out to him. He is definitely somebody worth checking out. Alright, so right now I'm going to show the house, but before I do that, I'll first remove it from the base plate so that I could show it in greater detail, and I'll do that by first removing the rock. And some of you may have seen this interesting pattern in the road. Well, you can actually remove this, and underneath the ground there are some coins, which the story behind this is that the owner of the house hid these coins in case his family's house was ever raided, or maybe worst case scenario destroyed. Which, considering what is happening right now, was a pretty good idea. Alright, so this is what the base plate looks like when you remove a house, which underneath the house there are a lot of wacky colors, but that is okay because whenever the house is on top of a mock, you don't actually see those colors, and the house is secured by only one stud. Alright, so here's the front of the house, which all around the house I made sort of like a stone and cobblestone base, because of course a lot of medieval houses had a stone base. And for the tutor, I used a lot of white and tan. Tan represents all of the dirt. And for the timber, I actually used a lot of reddish brown tiles. But I did also use tan tiles on the sides of a house, which is supposed to represent birch timber, which I think is a very cool detail that I really like. Alright, so I actually made a brick-built door for the house, which I think is a pretty cool detail, and I also made a couple of stained glass windows above the door, which look great, especially when there's light shining through them. Alright, so here's another detail that I wanted to point out. So as you can see right now, there's this big ugly gap in this side of a building, but I did use these sort of pieces to cover up the gap, which I think it turned out great, and I thought it was a detail that I should mention. Alright, so right now I'll talk about the chimney, which I tried to make the chimney look like it's out of stone or cobblestone, which I think I captured the look. It is a pretty simple build, but it does stick out from the actual house, which I think is a pretty nice detail. And for the chimney smoke, I actually used these Lego Ninjago snakes, which isn't a new part usage, but I think it is a pretty cool throwback. And something I also want to mention is that I used a lot of discolored and all the Lego pieces, which I think add a lot to the house, a lot of new colors and gradients and a lot of new texture. And I think without those discolored pieces, the house would look very bland, but I think they do add a lot. Alright, so right now I'll talk about the roof, which the roof comes apart in two separate parts, and it is made out of black tiles and black Lego minifigure CMF stands. And they also used the technique that Lego used for their newest Lego castle set, where I used an angled plate to cover up some gaps. And they also used a tan small Technigear as sort of like a bird's nest, as I think it captures the texture very well, and it is something I have never seen before. Alright, so right now I'll show you the interior of the second floor, which in the second floor there is the parents' bed. There's also a furnace on the chimney that you can open and close, and there's some smoke inside of the chimney. There's also another bed for the daughter of the parents, and there's also a small table in the middle, and there's also this very cool candlestick design. And so for any of you wondering how I made this Lego candlestick, well, I actually used a Lego Harry Potter wand piece sprue. Which, for any of you wondering what is a sprue, well, some Lego parts come with this extra plastic around it, which you have to punch out. And well, most of the time you have to throw it away, but I save those pieces and you can actually use them in builds. And so I was inspired to make this candlestick using the sprue by Dan the Fan, as I had already mentioned him. And I also used a Lego Ninjago shuriken sprue for actually the door handle of the door. And I should also mention that on one side of the second floor there's a little hole so that you could have access to the second floor and bottom floor by using a ladder. Alright, so over here is the shape of the house, which as you can see the shape is pretty interesting and it isn't a square. And so for the first floor, the floor is made out of wood. And it looks pretty rustic and jagged, as they didn't connect the tiles all the way down so that it could look more rustic. Over here is the little boy's bed, which looks pretty comfy. Over here is the fireplace with a shovel to move the firewood. Here's the firewood and also the broom. And here's a little place to prepare some food. Somebody was in the process of cutting a carrot, and also there are some pots and pans down below. Over here are 2 stools and a little table, and then of course there is the actual ladder. But I mean, yeah, that's it for the tour of the actual build. But wait, where's the toilet? Well, it's over here. Yeah, I was right when I said the wizard was ruthless. So pretty much what he did was he threw a fireball. But I mean, yeah, everybody, this will be the end for this video, so thank you all to anybody who watched this video to the very end. I really do appreciate it, and I'm really glad I participated in this event. And I must say that everybody had built an amazing mock. I watched every single mock review and it looked amazing. And of course, thank you to Bricks for this opportunity. Good luck to everybody. Bricks with them out. Goodbye.